Welcome to Living Fully, a podcast dedicated to enhancing your mental well-being. Each episode explores valuable insights and practical strategies to help you lead a more fulfilling life. I'm your host, Katherine Hurtig. Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. I'm excited to bring you a new season of Living Fully with conversations with Calgary Counselling Centre's expert counselors about all things mental health. So for our first episode of 2024, we're switching things up a little bit. I sat down with Sarah Rosenfeld, social worker at Calgary Counselling Centre, to talk about my mental health story. Over the years, I've dealt with depression and anxiety. And before I worked at Calgary Counselling Centre, I was actually a client. I worked with a counselor one-on-one and participated in a group program. So in this episode, we'll talk about what depression and anxiety looked like for me and my own experience with counseling. Today we are turning the tables a little bit, and I have Sarah Rosenfeld here with me. She's a counselor at Calgary Counselling Centre. Today we're going to talk about my story. I'm going to tell you kind of my mental health journey. So yeah, thanks so much, Sarah, for being with me and chatting about this.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you and to talk more about your journey.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I just want to normalize the idea of talking about mental health and hopefully help people see, that they're not alone and that reaching out for help is a good idea.
That's an important message.
For sure. So I will dive right in.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll start right off at the beginning. I think throughout my childhood and adolescence, I feel like my mental health, it always felt a bit fragile. Like it was, I want to say, dependent on other people. I needed the love and approval from other people to feel okay with myself. I think sensitive would be the right word. I don't think I got the message that was a good thing, being sensitive and emotional and
empathetic, kind.
Yeah. I mean, as a girl, to a certain extent, that's accepted. But I think I felt it was, it was on another level, like you're too sensitive. So, and taking those messages in, that definitely impacted me. I experienced everything with, really big emotions. And in my friendships and relationships, like I personalized everything. It was my belief that, the way people talked to me, the way people behaved around me, the way people treated me, that was a reflection on my worth as a person, positive or negative.
That sounds like a bit of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. And then when I was around 14, I went through an eating disorder. So that was also pretty difficult. I did have a really positive counseling experience with that. So I did get help and was able to get through that situation fairly successfully. But what I really want to talk about today, the part of my life that I feel had the biggest impact on my mental health was when I was around 19. I started a relationship with this guy, and it was unlike anything I had before. He was awesome. I felt he accepted me for completely who I was, like mistakes and all. And he, encouraged me and celebrated my successes. And I felt I could really be myself with this person.
That's so heartwarming.
Yeah. I could be completely vulnerable. But the thing is, it ended really abruptly and unexpectedly. So when that happened, I mean, I'm sure I know that there are many people who can handle breakups well and learn from it and take it for what it is, that it's just, it's sad, but things happen. This, to me, this breakup, it was devastating because I felt I was completely myself with this person. He knew exactly where I was and decided to leave. I felt like, okay, there must be something wrong with me.
That was the first thing you went to, hey? You didn't think there could be other reasons, or that he was going through something, or maybe the intensity was too much for him. You just came and put it all on you.
Yeah. It's funny because those conversations are definitely ones that I had later on with counselors about the situation. But no, automatically it's there's something wrong with me and I am unlovable. And so, I mean, I don't like saying that this breakup was the reason for my depression, but I feel it was definitely a catalyst for the next, few months and maybe a year more, I was definitely depressed. And I felt out of control when it came to my emotions. There'd be times at school or at work or at family events and something would trigger me and I wouldn't be able to stop crying. Like I felt like I couldn't contain that sadness.
And that must have been really scary for you.
Yeah. I noticed that I kind of went back to similar sort of behaviors when I had my eating disorder, because a lot of that was about control, like feeling that I was in control of something. So, I mean, I didn't go back to like harming my body in that way, but just little things like I was obsessed with having a clean room and everything had to be pristine and getting like the exact right amount of sleep. And just to feel like I had a bit of control because, inside I felt very out of control, if that makes sense.
Well, and you were having really strong responses and reactions and emotions. And it sounds like you didn't have a roadmap to help you understand what that meant. And so you turned it inwards.
Yeah. So thankfully, since I did have that positive experience with counseling when I was younger, I didn't wait too long. What I was feeling was terrible. So I wanted that to change. I wanted those feelings to stop. So I did reach out for help. I was a student at the time. I was in university. And so I looked up, I found Calgary Counselling Centre and saw that it could be affordable for me. So I started working with a counselor. And I don't want to, I'm not going to, tie a nice bow on this. It's not like it's the perfect happy ending, but my initial work with a counselor, I was able to learn a lot of tools to help to change my thinking. With my particular counselor, through conversations with me, she decided that CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy would be a good route to go. And one of the things that really stood out to me with that was the idea of a thought record.
Okay.
Initially, I was so hesitant to it. I was like, it just seems very, I don't know what the word is. But like the idea of sitting down and writing everything out, like what I was thinking, and there was a lot of pushback there. But once I accepted it and said, well, why not? I mean, it can't hurt, and actually did it, I did start to see really positive changes. I think that process of really pausing and thinking about alternatives to your thoughts, and not even necessarily because you're thinking of alternatives to negative thoughts, not necessarily positive ones, but just neutral ones. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Things that don't have an immediate response or reaction.
Yeah, or a value. It's not like good or bad. It's just like this could be realistically what's happening. Yeah, that really helped. And so, it's a process. It's not like changing the way you think happens overnight.
I think this is really important what you're talking about, because one of the things I think we need to understand about counseling is, might reduce initially some of the overwhelm or the really strong emotion. But I really think about it in terms of scope, duration, and intensity. So how much is this impacting you in your life?
Right. For
how long and how intense?
Yeah.
And so if we can kind of start to reduce some of that, that's part of what the journey looks like. Mm-hmm. It's not, as you said at the start of our conversation, a panacea and a fix-all, but it's where do I go to? What things do I try on? Who do I reach out to if this happens, to reduce the intensity, the time that you're in that space, and for how long?
Definitely. So I worked with a counselor one-on-one for a while. And then through that work, she recommended one of our group programs. At the time, it was called Break Loose from Depression. Now it's Take Charge of Your Life. And that one, again, I approached with a bit of hesitancy. I had experienced group counseling when I was going through my eating disorder, and I didn't find that very helpful. But again, I just thought it can't hurt. Yeah, so I went in a bit hesitant, but with an open mind, and I was really glad I did. I think it's so important. I think depression, especially, you can just feel so alienated and different. And I'm the only one who's thinking this way, the only one who's feeling this way. So I think being around other people, our lives were completely different, but we could relate in that we were feeling some of the same things.
That's the power of group.
Yeah.
It's that ability to see other people. It helps you recognize that other people are going through similar things. The situation might be specific to you, but the feelings or the way you're thinking about it, you're not alone in that.
Yeah. That was huge. So went through group counseling. And, like I said, it's not, the end, happy ending. I continue to go through periods of time where I feel like, depression and anxiety are impacting my life. But because I went through counseling, I have the self-awareness to know, like, okay, what do I need in this situation? And I can identify when I need to reach out for help again. So that's kind of my story.
I really want to thank you for being so honest about it. It takes a lot of courage to tell people what you've been through and what you were struggling with. But I really value that you're saying there's still things that come up from time to time. And I think that's an important thing for people to remember. And it doesn't mean that they didn't learn things through counseling. It just means life gets hard.
It took me a while to get there. There have been times where I felt like I was a failure or it didn't work for me or I'm never going to get better. But yeah, I have a different mindset around that now. Because for some people, a few counseling sessions, one kind of round of counseling, I guess, you might be great after that and not need any more help. But I think it's important for people to realize that sometimes that's not it. Sometimes, something will happen later in life and you won't feel that you can handle it on your own. And that's okay to get more help.
Yeah, that's an important thing to remind people, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's a very individual experience, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, maybe I thought that the way I thought about it was not universal, but very common. So I thought other people would agree. Oh yeah, if you only need this many sessions with a counselor and if you're not all better by then, well, yeah.
If you think about counseling in terms of other things that we access throughout our lives, right? Whether it's going to a medical doctor, going to see an optometrist, as we go through different things in our life, stress levels, age, our prescription may change. The medication we're on may need to be adjusted. Counseling is a little bit like that. Yeah. Depending on what's happening for you, stress levels, what you're managing, new things coming into your life, strategies that have worked in the past and they don't anymore. It's about allowing ourselves to be fluid and flexible about what we need. And counseling can be that. It can be all of it.
It's funny how we think about like a medical doctor, like, yeah, of course, like of course your medication needs to be changed or like, that's no big deal that you need to see a doctor for that. But then when it's taking care of your mind and your thoughts and emotions, I don't know, there's a different view on that.
There is.
Hopefully it's shifting, but yeah, there's still that, or there has been that stigma.
Yeah. And hopefully we're opening that up a little bit and helping people appreciate and understand it's kind of similar. We're always changing and adapting and evolving. So why would our brains or the need for therapy look any different? It's just giving ourselves permission.
Yeah. Self-compassion. That's something I've learned over the years and has been really important.
So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for letting me be part of hearing that.
My pleasure.
One of the things that we didn't really talk about, but I'm curious and wondering about is, when we go through times, we all have people around us that care about us, right? Our support systems. So
for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about, how did they support you? How were they involved in this process with you?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Because again, I think a common thing with depression is like I said, that feeling of alienation. And I really felt like I was a burden. Especially around my friends. I felt like I'm not fun anymore. I'm not a good time to be around. So why would you want to be around me? But I had an amazing support system. My mom, she was there for me completely and unconditionally. And I don't know if she always understood what was going on or what I was feeling, but she was definitely there and wanted to give me what I needed. And I have two amazing best friends that I've had since high school, and they were also there through it all. And they would remind me constantly that I wasn't a burden and that they loved me and that I would be okay.
So people around you can play a pretty important role, right? In terms of, even if they don't know the details of what you're going through, kind of being there. Sounds like you had this sort of, I see warmth around you when you describe that.
Huge,
people that really cared. They didn't necessarily know all the details. They didn't always know exactly what to say, but they kind of encouraged you to keep going and keep trying and keep doing the work.
Yeah, I don't think what I was experiencing is uncommon. I think a lot of people who are depressed can feel that way, like they're a burden. And yeah, that's something you really got to work on, is not isolating yourself, and don't shut people out.
Harder to do sometimes.
Of course. Yeah.
How do people do that? How would you encourage people to seek that help, to reach out, even though they're feeling so alienated and isolated?
We talk about this with our National Depression Screening Day initiative, about like really breaking it down to simple, small steps. Like with me, my thoughts could definitely snowball. It could go from my friend didn't answer my call, and that could snowball to I'm going to be alone forever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really focusing on just the thing in front of you, taking like one little step in the right direction. I know it's hard to like get motivated when you're not feeling good, but it's doing things even if you don't feel like it. So send out a text, ask to hang out, give someone a call. So just those little steps.
I love that. Little steps.
Yeah.
Little steps add up to lots of steps.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, I think that's applicable with a lot of other things in life, like exercise and, physical activity, but it works here too. Like, it's not like you're going to see these changes right away, but like you said, yeah, little steps add up.
And just continuing to keep moving forward and keep going. So even if you maybe forget to do the little step one day, tomorrow you can take another little step.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. And again, it's the self-compassion. Like, don't beat yourself up for taking a few steps back.
Thanks for that reminder. For people, that's practical and pragmatic. Makes a lot of sense. You've talked a little bit about it not being a panacea, and, there's still been some struggles. Like, what are the things that you come back to that ground you, that keep you and maintain you on this journey of mental wellness?
What's a panacea?
Like a fix, it's not like this amazing thing that fixes everything. It's right. Yeah. Like what would you want people to know about just day to day? What are the things that you do to maintain that wellness?
Mm-hmm. A few things. One, like I've said before, self-compassion is huge, and realizing that, like, telling myself it's okay if I feel like I've taken a few steps back, or if I'm going through a hard time and I feel like I can't handle it on my own, it's okay to reach out for help again. That's been big. What's huge that I think a lot of people underestimate is how connected physical and mental health are, and really going back to the basics, like the right amount of sleep, a decent diet, and exercise. For me, exercise is huge. Like, it's critical to maintain my mental health.
That's a really important one, the basics and the routines. But you're also talking about something there that is a good reminder, right? Talk therapy is hugely important and plays a role, but there's these other parts of us that we need to explore when we're going through difficult times. And physical exercise for you've discovered, kind of opens up pathways, leads to more relaxation probably, helps ground you. It's really important that people figure out for them, as you said, it's integral, right? It's essential. That might not be the case for everybody, but they have to find their thing.
Exactly.
That is their essential.
And yeah, you kind of made a good point. Like, yes, therapy is one part of it. And this is something that's probably not easy for some people to hear, but you got to put in the work. It's not like, you sit in the counselor's chair for that hour once a week and that's it, and you're going to start to feel better. You have to put in the work, whether it's the homework that you're given from your counselor, whether it's taking care of yourself physically, whether it's, being social when you don't feel like it. It does take work, and it's not always fun, but it's worth it for sure.
Thank you for saying that. If we want things to be better, we have to do things to help it be better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the reason that we might be doing something in a way that's not helpful is because we don't know how to do it differently. Yeah. Or we might be thinking it's helpful when it's really not helpful. And it's about this idea of, you talked about work, but I also talk about it in terms of experimentation. Right? Yeah. What are you willing to try and experiment with and do differently that you didn't before? Because maybe the trying to do it that way is going to bring you some of the things that you've been searching for.
I think that mindset is really important. Like having the willingness to try. Because I think, again, like a depressed and anxious mind, you can think nothing's going to work, or I tried something like that before and it didn't help. But you have to experiment. You have to try new things. That's another point I wanted to make about counseling is it's a process with another person. And you're not going to click with everybody. You're not going to have an amazing relationship with every person. So if you don't have a great relationship with a counselor, that doesn't mean that the therapy isn't working. That doesn't mean it can't work. It might just mean that you need to talk to somebody else. And I totally understand that can be frustrating to be vulnerable again and again with different people. But that's a really important part, is to find someone that you feel really comfortable with, because that relationship is super important for progress and change to happen.
I couldn't agree with that more. It's really important that connection works for you, and people learn differently. They connect to different things that therapists do, whether it's tone of voice or therapeutic approaches. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but giving yourself permission to try again if you're not getting, if the relationship part isn't working for you.
Yeah, because I've heard from friends and experienced it myself, where it's like, you have a few sessions with a counselor and it's like, this is not working. And it's important to realize it's not the counselor's fault, and it's not your fault, and it's not like therapy won't work for you, but it's just not the right fit.
It's about the fit.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because you need to be able to have the fit to do the work and to trust that process. And if the fit isn't there, let yourself know that you deserve to have the fit.
Yeah.
And the connection that's going to work for you.
Yeah. It's not like if you went to a mechanic or something, it's like, they fix your car or they don't. It's like I said, it's a relationship with another person, and you're not going to be best friends with everybody in the world. You're not going to, wouldn't marry everyone in the world. That doesn't came across weird, but
no, I totally know I know what you're saying. I think you're saying, right? For this type of work, you got to be a bit picky. Right? You got to be a bit picky about what you know about yourself, who you connect with, what types of people work, right? Who are you more comfortable talking to?
Right. So a question for you, Sarah, then, is for someone who is starting counseling, do you have any recommendations of questions to ask their counselor to kind of assess if they'd be a good fit?
I'd want to know a little bit about their background. Like, what have they done? Where have they worked? What's, an area of interest or passion for them? I'd also want to be knowing how willing they are to receive feedback about what's working or not working. And why I think that is super important is because then it's a collaborative process where you can give and receive. I would kind of be trusting myself in terms of, is this somebody where I'm feeling there is something there that I'd be wanting to tell them more? Or if I'm feeling really guarded, there could be other things that you want to know about, right? What brought them into the profession? Why do they like working with people and helping people? Some people see their work as a job, and other people see it much more as a calling. Or as they're drawn to a certain purpose. Depending on what you're looking for, you might want somebody that's more boundaried, right? That they see it more as a job, and there's strong boundaries around it. For other people, it's going to be, I need to have more of that connection.
Totally.
And that's going to be the thing that's going to help me do the work, because I know that they have my back, or they believe in me or my capacity.
Yeah.
So I think it's really going to depend a little bit on what you need and what you know about yourself. And where do you do your best? What kinds of environments are you in where you're able to do your best? What are the conditions?
If someone is assessing their fit with a counselor, is there someone that you think you can kind of compare it to? Like, oh, my relationship with this person is pretty good, and this is how we interact with each other. This is how, why that relationship works. I don't think it would be exactly like a friend, because a counselor isn't a friend. It's not a parent. Would it be like, oh, I have a great relationship with this teacher, and these are...
I think a little bit, right? Because there has to be professional boundaries around this relationship. You're right. It is not a friendship. It is quite different, although there are elements of, right, that connection, that sharing piece.
Yeah, I like that there's elements of it, because you want your counselor to like you.
Yeah, you do. But what I would also say is you shouldn't know that much about your counselor once you've started the work, right? It's not a reciprocity of, oh yeah, I've had that happen to me too, and let me tell you about my life story. That's not what counseling is about. Yeah. Counseling is about you. You are the recipient of the services, and it needs to be focused on you. And a little bit of relatability is okay. You should not know that much about your counselor and their life and what happens for them because the focus is on you. Yeah. That's why it's different than other relationships, but the same would be of a good teacher or mentor. Yeah. Right? They're there to help you learn and identify your learning style. Yeah. Give you things that allow you to be successful because they know that's how you learn and grow. And right, they're there for you. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So we talked a little bit about, the differences between individual and group counseling. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about how those things connected with one another? Like, did you find them complementary? I know you said that you'd done group counseling in another setting and it wasn't as helpful, but this time around it was validating and supportive. So can you just talk a little bit about, it sounds like you did some individual work, then you did some group counseling.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
I found how Calgary Counselling Centre approaches those two types of counseling to just work really well. So when I went into group counseling after individual, I just felt like I had a really good base knowledge. Like you're putting things into practice, you know certain terms. I think just you have a good base knowledge of the direction you're going. I think it kind of sets you up for success in that way.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is individuals, that orientation to what it looks like, to who you are, to some of the language. And then once you're familiar with that, it's sort of like an additive, right? It builds on some of those things and then helps you socially in terms of connection, validation, normalizing. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think even just setting it up the way it is, like, okay, you're doing individual counseling, you've done pretty well, you've made these steps, you're progressing. The thought of just, okay, taking the next step forward, it just feels like progress. It feels like improvement. It's like, okay, well, now I'm moving on to this. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you're graduating from individual counseling and going into group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That does make sense. I like that. I think you can apply that to lots of things, right? What are the next steps? What are the things I look forward to? Yeah. What are the things that I can do now, right? Because then you're actually in a group setting and it will depend on the individual, but you might be talking a bit about your experience or the things that you've learned or the things that you're still struggling with. Mm-hmm. And then you get to hear how other people would respond, not just the counselor.
Exactly. Because like you said, there are those boundaries there, but with other people going through the same thing, it's a different conversation. There's a bit more vulnerability and yeah.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about being open to those new experiences when you're learning.
Yeah.
And so group can be part of that new experience. What did you learn? What did you like about it? What were the things that were harder? And it's going to look different than it would have when you did it just one-on-one.
For sure.
Thank you. When you're not actively doing therapy, mm-hmm. right? So you're just living your life, you're feeling like you're maintaining things okay. Are there any particular strategies, techniques, skills that you fall back on that help?
So exercise for sure. I found something that works for me. I know that exercise is super individual as well. I really love running, but I know that is definitely not for everyone. That's huge. I go back to the idea of a thought record, not in detail. Like I don't have a piece of paper and I write it down, but through counseling, it became a little more automatic mm-hmm. to when, a negative or triggering thought comes up to pause, say, okay, what else could be happening here? What else could this mean, that still happens all the time where thoughts come up that are self-deprecating, that are really negative about me. And so I have to consciously stop and consider alternatives. So that helps. I think, just having self-awareness and building on that and knowing what I need and being okay with it. I've kind of realized over the years that yes, being social is very important. And I do have a lot of really great, strong relationships. I love my alone time. So just kind of embracing what makes me who I am, I guess.
A deepening of a connection to yourself is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
A better understanding of what do I need at this time? Do I need to be around people? Do I need to be by myself? And whatever that looks like is okay.
Yeah. Like that last thing, it being okay. That's been a work in progress. And I think I'm much more at that place, like that acceptance. What I feel is okay. What, I think it's okay. What I need is okay. Yeah.
That's amazing to hear that.
It took a while. But
as things do, that we really need to put effort and energy into.
Yeah.
It takes longer probably than we'd like it to. It's also important to keep going.
Yeah, I know. And that's the hard part, and like a hard message to get across to other people. It's like, because you have to sit in those uncomfortable feelings for a lot longer than you want to. But it is important to keep going and keep working at it.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
In terms of your quality of life and how you feel about yourself, and then what you bring to other people, other situations in your life. So if we look back on this journey, what are the final things that you'd like your listeners to know about mental health, acceptance, self-acceptance, and reaching out for support? Yeah,
just reiterating some of my other points is really have compassion towards yourself and know that it, when you're feeling it's okay. Treat yourself really kindly and realize that you deserve to feel better. I would tell people that don't be afraid or don't be hesitant to reach out for help. Like we've said, it's important to try new things, and it's not going to make things worse to try to get help. Yeah. And I think, like we've said, have realistic expectations. You will have to put in some work, and you might not find the perfect fit with a counselor immediately, but it is important to keep trying. Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. Stay committed to yourself.
Yeah.
Stay committed to the life you deserve. I like what you said there.
Yeah.
You deserve to feel better.
Exactly.
And it can be better.
Mm-hmm. It can be great.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Living Fully, a Calgary Counselling Centre podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This episode was produced by Louisa Campos, Nick here, and by me, Katherine Hurtig. A special thanks to Sarah Rosenfeld. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe. We're available in your favorite podcast app. Living Fully is a production of Calgary Counselling Centre and recorded in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. Living Fully podcast is not a substitute or alternative for professional care or treatment. Calgary Counselling Centre and Counselling Alberta provide effective counselling for anyone in Alberta with no waitlist and no financial barriers. Find us online at calgarycounseling.com or counselingalberta.com. For help across Canada and the United States, call 211. If you are outside of Canada and the US, seek help from your general medical practitioner.